What's up, guys? I'm Evan Wick,
And I'm Patrick Spray.
and this is episode 4 of Washed
Washed
Up.
up.
How did it sound, Trent?
That was pretty close. That was good. We'll take
It was
it.
kind of lined
We're
up?
getting better. We're getting
It was
better,
it
man.
was it was better. I mean, it was pretty close.
Yeah. For those of you guys who don't know, we got Trent Hillger on this week. First ever guest on Washed Up. The first ever Washed Up guest. Four-time Division I NCAA All-American from the University of Wisconsin, hailing from the state of Michigan. He's a Michigander.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir.
Let's go Lions.
How many?
Dude,
Oh, yeah, the Lions are
It's a
killing
I
big
am
it.
so
weekend. It's
scared
a
for
big
this week,
weekend.
Evan. Or, I mean, for Trent. I'm so scared. We're
I
going to
don't
What?
know
get
if you know
waxed
this, Evan. We're
Sunday.
playing each other this weekend.
We're going
The
to get
Colts and
waxed
Lions.
so bad.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'm a
The
Colts
Lions will.
fan, and the Lions are about to beat the crap out of us this week.
Anthony Richardson makes me nervous, dude. Once he gets going, that's a big dude to bring down. I couldn't imagine trying to tackle that dude.
Hey, he finally threw a ball that was in the vicinity of a receiver this week.
That's true. I'm glad that Flacco forced him back to having to start Anthony Richardson because it's stupid to bench him in the first place. But
Yeah. I'm with you. Let's go.
I'm uh I'm seriously happy for you, Trent, because you were a die-hard, like actual Lions fan through and through, like even when they were terrible.
dude, you're telling me I watched every 0-16 game when I was like 9 years old, 10 years old. I sat down and watched every single 0-16 game. I was like, "This is the game. We're not doing it."
At what point did you just accept your fate that you guys weren't going to win another one?
I mean, I guess the last game, I was like, "There's no way we go
You
0
held
16."
hope till game 16.
I was like, "There's no way we go 0-16." I was like, "No one's ever done it. We're gonna figure it out." I'm pretty sure we were playing a team that like was already in the playoffs too. So like they played their backups the whole second half, and we still lost. So yeah, it was bad, and it's been nice to watch your team whoop on some people every weekend. So
Be on the winning side once.
yeah, they also have some games like the Texans games. I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. But they still figure it out. They're the brand new
They
Lions,
almost
dude.
lost it. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
They still got that coach who was talking about biting kneecaps off and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Dude, he is. He's been biting everyone's
Oh
kneecaps
yeah.
this
They
year.
invite everyone's kneecaps, dude. They're gonna build him a statue.
They
He's the
might.
man.
He is the man. I love him.
What reeled you into being a Lions fan, even though they were, I mean, because presumably there was never really any good before this year.
Hmm. Just being from Michigan, I grew up like just outside Detroit, like an hour outside Detroit. Like went to Lions games, watched the Lions like every single Sunday. Like that was a part of your day. Like my family would go to church and watch the Lions game, and that was every single Sunday, no matter
It's like
what.
it's
And they were
Sunday.
0-16, 2-14, whatever it was. Like we watched every single Sunday at noon because they're always a noon game because they never got prime time because they sucked. So it was, I mean, it's just you become a fan watching it every day, and like you start getting some pride. You have some good years, like when Stafford and Megatron. Like I was a huge Megatron fan, hard not to be. And so it's like you always had hope because you had these like superstars on your team that would like pull out one game. Like Megatron had like a 350 16 catch game, and you're like, oh, we can do it this year. This is the year we're gonna win a game in the playoffs. Would make the playoffs, and then some crazy thing would happen in the game. We would lose in a playoff game or something. So, but carried it on, and we're being rewarded for the many years of misery.
I give
And you
Trent
were,
crap all the time. He all the way through college, Lions just still weren't that great. And then I give him crap all the time. I'm like, man, we're the brand new Lions. Like, what's going on? The Colts are just terrible every year now. Right in the middle of the road. Can't get any better. Roles reversed.
Yeah,
yeah. So,
hopefully you guys aren't dealing with it as long as we did. That'd be don't wish that upon anybody.
Yeah, that was so horrible.
uh, so Trent, you grew up playing football. I mean, is that kind of did everyone who you were playing football with were they Detroit Lions fans?
Uh, a lot, yeah, a lot of them were. I mean, Michigan has a ton of Division 1 colleges too. So like Michigan State would separate a lot of guys. Like there was a lot of passion with Michigan State, but like everyone's Detroit Lions fans. So that kind of helps. Like the whole state rallied around this horrible team. It's like we, like us as fans, we can bring this team together. And uh, yeah, so everyone was a Lions fan. So like every Sunday, like I said, we would watch every Lions game. We'd have all a bunch of friends, family come over, watch Lions games. And I said Michigan State was really divided on Saturdays, but Detroit Lions were everyone Sundays.
Yeah. Not through in high school. You did both football and wrestling, right?
Yeah, the entire time.
Like you were contemplating doing both for a while, weren't you?
Yeah. At Wisconsin, I was recruited for both, and I was considering. Well, Cornell, I was going to do both. So I don't know if
You were
anyone knows.
going.
I've talked about this in the past, but it was between Cornell and Wisconsin
Yeah.
for my final two. And at Cornell, I was going to do both because the Ivy League has different like college football seasons. Like they don't overlap at all. Like their football season's done in November, so like
What?
wrestling season,
Okay.
yeah, they only play Ivy League schools and like maybe military schools too. But I'm pretty sure they only play Ivy League schools. They don't have Ivy League championship, and that's it.
Nice.
Uh,
Okay.
so would overlap or wouldn't overlap, and so I was planning on doing both there. And then Wisconsin, they also recruited me for football and wrestling, but there's just it's not possible to do both there. I mean, Wisconsin, 99% of the time they're going to play a bowl game in late December, maybe early January, and that's over. Or that's halfway through the season for wrestling, and that just wouldn't be doable. I'd be cutting out either sport. And I wanted to give it like all to one sport if possible. And so I decided I want to go to Wisconsin before I decided I want to wrestle or play football. I just wanted to be in the Big Ten. Like I loved Wisconsin. The like Madison's beautiful. I mean, obviously you guys both went there. You understand it why you guys chose Wisconsin too. Like it was hard to say no. And yeah, and then I decided wrestling, obviously.
Was that when your, so to speak, identity shifted from a football player to a wrestler, or was there a time before that? I mean, did you see yourself in high school more as a football player or a wrestler?
Early high school, it was definitely football. Wrestling was more of like I wrestled a lot. My dad got me into wrestling when I was really young, but I didn't enjoy it nearly as much. It was just kind of like way more like of a grind, obviously. Like just like there's not as much like success behind it. Like football, you get like all of the newspaper, you get a lot of like all the fans, like you get 10,000 people. Like we would have like 5,000 people showing up to our high school football games. We're like a 500 person school, and so we're
Wow.
having like these crazy turnouts. And like wrestling would have like some of our parents would show up, and so it's like just not as fun to be in the crowds and like being in that atmosphere. But it was there was a few times during football when I would be like the only one in the summer training in the weight room, and like I'd be the only one like doing extra things for football. And like then when it would come to the season, I'd have to rely on the people that weren't also working with me in the summer, like all like the hard work off season. And that was like kind of a point for me. Like I said, it can come off very selfish, but I was like, I don't want to have to like my success to be in the hands of other people. And so like that's where it kind of shifted in the wrestling. It's like when if I work hard in wrestling and like work my butt off in the off season, and like most of the time it's going to show up on the mat because it's me that's doing it. So
How good were your football and wrestling teams like comparatively?
our football teams were good. We were just a very naturally talented football team. Made a couple runs into the playoffs. We had one year that we were horrible, but we had all the 3 other years we at least won one game in the playoffs. So we were a pretty good team. Like I said, very naturally talented. That was kind of like I felt that if we had put like a big concerted effort into the off season, we could have made a deep run. There's just a bunch of freak athletes, like 4.5 40s, like 6'3", like really good athletes, and just like never panned out when it needed to. And so that was very frustrating. Wrestling, we were kind of similar thing. 3 of the 4 years we made this team state tournament and we made a team state semifinals. 2 of those, or 2 of the years. And one of the years we were definitely good enough to win a state title. It was tough. Like I said, we were a small school, would have like 15 guys on our team, and there's 14 weight classes, but like 3 of them would be the same weight class, or like 2 of them would be like JV level kids. So we'd have like 12 guys fill up a lineup. So we'd have 2 forfeits every duel, and would make the state semifinals and like lose by 1 in the state semifinals. So we were a really good team. Like we would have like 6 guys make the semifinals at state, and like we were a good squad.
But you didn't have too many people to train with, though, if I recall correctly.
No,
You wrestled a coach a
I,
lot. Told me
huh?
I feel you wrestled a coach a lot, right?
Yeah, Russell coached a lot when I was younger, and then obviously that started wearing on him a little bit. He was a little bit older, so as I started getting bigger and better at wrestling, I started like venturing out a little bit. Like I'd go to like University of Michigan RTC practices twice a week, and I'm doing some other practice with like a former college, like 197, that he was coaching a kids club now. I'd wrestle with him on the weekends, and so I did a lot less wrestling in the room and kind of travel around the state, like to different places. Like the Mosses had a really big training facility that was a couple hours away every Sunday at like 8 in the morning. They would like all the best guys in the state would go there. So every single Sunday would go there and train at this Masa's facility.
RTC had to have been a big thing for you. Did you train with like Kuhn at the
Oh
time?
yeah, I was our families like my family and Coon's family were already pretty close before. So I
Right.
trained with Coon a lot at the Michigan RTC, and then Dan Perry at the time he was a big competitor of mine, but he was also at Michigan, so we saw each other a bunch there. That was the biggest crossover. I don't think Paris was signed yet, so I don't think he was really coming around at the time. But Coon and I wrestled a bunch.
Was that was there any moment in high school where you felt like it clicked? Was it probably going to that RTC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, after my freshman year, I had a successful freshman year. I was 171 as a freshman, took fourth. My teammate won the state title.
I was gonna say you should tell this story because I remember when you told me this. It blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. Like,
Yeah, so in Michigan, you're allowed to take 14 people into like the state series, but like you can allowed to have two per weight class. So like we whatever like we didn't have like a 103 at the time, so we had like two 112s, and then so I was wrestling 171 the entire year, and this other guy, my team, was wrestling 189, and he was like, we're both like, I had to cut a bunch of weight. I was like, probably walking around 190, cutting down to 171, and so 173 in the second part of the season, and I was beating him in a lot of the wrestling. Sometimes I bumped to 189. I'd wrestle well there or whatever. I wrestled really well 189. I actually beat the eventual state champ at 189, bumping up a weight. So I show up at the first tournament of the state series at 171, and my teammate weighs in next to me, and I had no
but
idea.
you didn't know he was coming down.
No, I had no idea. This was not discussed
I
at
didn't know
all.
that.
Not discussed at all. So I show up at like I think it's district was our first one, and so show up at districts. I wrestle in the finals at our district final. I lose to him in like triple overtime. It's always like a ride out. I lost him in the ride out. He got out with like 2 seconds left in the ride out, and lost to him there. And then we end up on opposite sides of the bracket for regional. I lose to at the time the number one guy in the state by like one or two, and he loses to him in the finals or regionals or whatever. And so like we both lose to him. We end up second and third, and then how we ended up, I lose a first round match at state, and he goes all the way through the bracket and beats all these guys by like one or two. And he I think he majored the guy that was the number one guy in the state in the finals,
Wow.
like on the backside. So he just had a hell of a tournament. Like he wrestled his butt off. Like, I mean, obviously I was super happy for him, but it was kind of like this entire time I'm beating him like the entire season, like uh, beating the entire season in these wrestle offs, and he comes down a weight class and like he pulled it out when he needed to, and I couldn't. So, but yeah, after back to the original question, after that, it kind of switched a gear for me. Like I knew I was there. Like I knew I had the ability to win a state title as a freshman. So it's just kind of like just transitioning into like being a little bit more mean on the mat. Like instead of just kind of being like I was a little tentative on the mat. So being a little bit meaner on the mat, I guess. And it kind of helped me.
Is that something that has stuck with you? Because I feel like for me in high school and early years in college, I had that, and then it's like when you maybe you can relate to this. When I became an All American, it was kind of like I had to be the guy on the team who won, so it became more about winning and losing than like being mean on the mat.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt it was a lot easier to wrestle, especially going to college as a freshman in college that first year because I was unranked going in. So I just kept beating guys that were better than me or better than me, I guess. And so I kept beating these higher ranked guys, and just it was like easy to like keep chasing up the ladder. And then once you were like on the ladder, it was a lot harder to get motivated, I guess, because you're saying, it was like more of like a win lose thing.
Yep.
Because like now, if you feel like you lose, then you feel like you're letting the team down, letting the coaches down. Like that feeling, like definitely started catching up as we are
So,
going.
was there something that was there like a routine that you would kind of do to kind of like help ground yourself back to like just simplify it? I'm not worried about with this guy's rank, what people are saying about the match. Like, was there something that you had kind of in your routine that would help get you back focused?
Like I said, it was a big battle for a while, and it overcame me a few times in some of these matches. But like I kind of just kept telling myself like you're bigger than wrestling. Like wrestling's just a sport. Like this is something that little 4-year-olds are doing for fun. Like it's still the same sport. Like don't need to like overthink it too much. Like it just like I said, it's just we're having fun, like just trying to remind myself that like this is a fun thing we're doing. Like I'm honored to do this, like blessed I have the ability to do this, and that wrestling doesn't define me as a person. And so
Gotcha.
that kind of helped me a bunch going into like my later season, especially after I did an All American that year in Detroit. Obviously, that was like very big reality check. Like I was considered being done with the sport. Like there was a lot of like I had some injury issues and there's a lot of issues like mentally like going on then, and I was pretty distraught about it. I'm like, man, I have to like take a step back and like find my identity again. And that kind of helped me a bunch, like coming into the next year. Like, this is a blessing to be here. So I gotta like take advantage of that, you know?
Yeah, I think in wrestling, it's you go through these phases where you get tough, and that takes you a long way, and you really start to like break those barriers. But then you find out that being tough isn't everything. You got to be really technically sound, and then you got to switch back over to that technical side of the sport where you start developing and getting better. But sometimes it's easy to lose that mental edge that you had, and I feel like that's at least how I felt was like I delved into the technique and trying to figure out the sport, and then I forgot like I gotta go out there and smack some dude in the mouth. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But you know what I thought?
Bono. Yeah.
What
Pulled a line from Bono there. Go out there and smack him in the mouth.
did Bono used to say that?
All the
He still
time,
just
right,
spit
Trent?
everything,
Oh, yeah, something's still sick. Yeah.
dude. He would always talk about how some team was gonna come in there and kick our ass, and I was like, dude, we don't care.
It's Maryland.
It's Maryland, dude, and Maryland's good now. So
Yeah,
Yeah, now
Maryland
they're
is dude, it
I
was
was at
always I always hated it. I would get Maryland and all you guys would have like these like easier matches. And I have like Yusuf Hamid. I'm like, this dude's like a top 5 guy in the country. It's like, what are you doing in Maryland, dude? Like I want to have it easy. I want to enjoy the Under Armour. They'll
yeah.
be
The
like,
coaches are like, "Hey, this week's Maryland. We got to stay focused." He was just like, "Dude, this is like the biggest match of my year so far."
like I'm just the best ranked guy I've wrestled all year so far.
You beat him. Did you ever lose to him?
No, I didn't.
Nice, because he was an All American already.
Yeah, he
He
was
was
I think
American
two
already.
timer. Is he All
Okay.
American the year my freshman year too? So
Mhm.
Was he in your bracket at Wrestling for Canada at Farrell? Is he still wrestling, right?
I don't know if he's still wrestling. I think he wrestles for Egypt, but I don't know if he's still
Egypt.
wrestling. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen him in a bracket in a while. He wrestled in whatever the African Open or an African Nationals, whatever it's called, to qualify for the Olympics. But I don't know if he's still wrestling.
Was he
So
one of the first All Americans you beat?
I think he was the first because I wrestled Sam Stoll like the next week. I beat him after that.
yeah, you had a good couple
Oh,
weeks.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but going off the mentality thing, I remember you saying because all these duels that we had at Wisconsin, it seemed like they always would come down to like heavyweight. And I was like, God, I feel bad for Trent that we can't like seal this deal before his match. But I remember you talking about you kind of liked when it came down to you. You liked that.
Dude, I love it. I love it.
Did
That's probably the biggest part I miss of college wrestling. Like there's no duels like where it can come down to me. Like I know all the guys in front of me. Like I had full belief in like you and like everyone that was like the brackets like below or like the guys below me in the weight classes. Like, but like I don't have as much belief in them as I do in myself in winning a match. Just because I can't
right.
control it, you know. Like I know like 99% of the time like Evan Wick's gonna win his match. Like so it's like I understand that, but like I would rather be the guy out there being able to control the outcome of this duel than like having to sit back and watch you do it. If you understand what I'm like getting at. Like so like I just
Yeah.
had it like drove me like to like man, this is like an opportunity like to make like a legend of myself. And that's kind of like what it ended up being. It's like I can kind of be like the guy like the go to like Steph Curry, like the go to shot. Like if someone needs to make a shot, like you're getting the ball in Steph Curry's hands, like that type of thing. Like
Would you say that you fed off that a lot, and that kind of like that was something that you strove for when you were in college?
oh yeah, I mean
Was that
like
like
you have to find like the little things that like get you going, and it was always like that. Even back in high school, like we had a lot of close duels in the state tournaments, and like it was a little different. Obviously, like the quality of competition wasn't as great, but it would just like get me going. Like that's what got me up in the morning. Like it's like man, like you can win a duel for like the team today. Then obviously everyone else had to put had to put an effort in and put like their part into it. But like it's just kind of getting yourself up to it and like getting that competitive juices flowing, like getting yourself amped for it.
I never wanted it to come down to me.
Evan has a complete opposite view.
I think he
He's so
did
scared.
it once, or no? I think the duel was out. I think it was Minnesota.
It was. I can't believe you remember that.
Yeah, I think because I remember because like it was like Bono was talking like they might start at 74. I just remember
They did.
you're like, dude, like come on, like no.
That was against Bailey O'Reilly. We had already lost the duel pretty bad at that point.
Oh yeah, because
Um,
I think they won like the first 5 or 6 straight.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
maybe they won up until Tristan won that thriller with McKee.
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
that was no. This was away.
Oh,
yeah. We were
okay.
away. Yeah,
My bad. Wrong door.
Yeah, but your head's in the right place, Pat. But there was never you're thinking there, Pat. I like it.
All right.
But there was never like do you remember any moment being like nervous for that match to come down to you like at all?
I mean sometimes obviously there's a little bit of nerves. I kind of had the mentality like if I wasn't nervous, I wasn't alive. Like I wasn't like I like before every match, like regardless of who it was, it could have been some like Kent State kid, or if it could have been Gable. Like if I was gonna be nervous regardless, and so like I mean I was looking forward to all of it, but like some of the bigger ones, like it's like more like there's gonna be a little bit more nerves. Like if I'm like I mean my senior year when it was Cassiope and the duel was 18-18 or something, or like 15-18 against Iowa. It just came down to me and like Cassiope, and obviously that one made me like a little nervous. I'm like, man, like this is gonna be a tough match, like whatever, regardless. And but like I was obviously super amped for it because like this is a chance to like do something that I can't remember the last time Wisconsin beat Iowa, and so it's like an opportunity for me to do something like super legendary, especially like senior year, like kind of like end my career off strong there in Wisconsin, and didn't get it done, but like super exciting like match to be a part of and like atmosphere to be a part of.
Dude, that would have been sick because I remember Brandvold and Kyle Rochelle used to always talk about this one time that Wisconsin beat Iowa. I
Mm-hmm.
forget what year it was, but they were in college when they like the last time Wisconsin beat Iowa, and I was like, "That's sick, man! I wish we could do that." But that was obviously the year that you're talking. We got pummeled by Iowa every time I was there,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
dude, we got torched. But
That's when the
how did
Tyler
that
got the pin on Abe Assad, double overs.
that was awesome, but highly questionable pin. Highly questionable pin. Tyler, I lived with you for 3 years. I'm sorry, it was a questionable pin, but that was lit. I was so excited for him. But
Yeah,
you know
well,
what?
I've never heard the field house as loud as it was right then because I think the entire field house felt that belief, like, wow, we can actually beat Iowa.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a
we
9 point
were up six
swing.
points. We were up 6 points at the time going into 97. No, up 3 points going into 97 or something like that.
Who
I can't.
wrestled? Who wrestled 97?
Amos did. I
Amos
don't
did.
think Warner wrestled. Actually, I don't remember what the score was, but I don't think Warner wrestled except Braxton got a win, but
Did
I
they
don't think.
put Glazer in there?
No, it wasn't Glazier. I don't think. I think it was their backup 84. Maybe it was Riggins. I can't remember.
Riggins.
I
Something
wasn't.
Hill, maybe?
I wasn't really paying attention. I was like trying to lock into my match.
Yeah.
Honestly,
You're like trying to focus in the back.
I'm like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah, I remember warming up back in that little area. I mean, it's a lot closer to you now, Trent, because you graduated 2023.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember warming up in that area back there in the field house, and like it's kind of chaos because it's right next to like the food court, and there's like kids coming up to you and
Well, there's a
stuff.
Dippin'
Coming
Dots
up to you all
stand
the time.
right next to you, the Dippin' Dots, directly next to the warm up area. So the little kids seeing you over, and like that Iowa duel was chaos. I mean, there was like 6,000 people in that stadium, and so
Yeah.
like the entire like it was like a line straight back to like our locker rooms of just like little kids, and like I'm trying to warm up back there and like see what's going on because like the TV's like around the corner, so I'm trying to like see the TV so I can like understand like how close I am to go. But every time I'd walk out, I'd be like stormed by kids, like Nudie Smearcheck, he had to like keep the kids away. He was like being my bodyguard because like I get swarmed every time. I would like look out the thing. I get swarmed by kids. Like it was insane.
Was
What
that
would you
record
say
attendance in
is
Phillies?
the
I think it
what's
was
that?
record attendance.
Nice.
What would you say is like your fondest memory inside the field house?
I think it's got to be the Thor celebration, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that kind of started the whole legacy after the whole Tate Orendorff match. I mean, that was pretty incredible. Like that started a whole different. I mean, I still can brand some things off of that. Like I got Hilger's hammer stuff, like Thor things. So it's got to be that. Like I mean, that was a pretty crazy match.
Was
Kind
pretty
of
crazy.
yeah, kind of put a staple into my legacy pretty early on, and was able to carry that on. The last match was pretty cool too. Wrestled you and I, and like just being like it was emotional. The last match in the field house, like wrestled there for 5 years, so that was a lot. But like the most, yeah, I would probably say Utah Valley match was the most like impactful one, at least for myself.
Yeah, you had the Thor. Remember everyone calling you Thor. The entire state knew you were Thor. That was pretty sick, and you had the
Yeah,
flow to go with it and everything. So that was perfect. But
Yeah.
was it there? I thought you were already being called Thor, and then you did the hammer thing.
I was already being called Thor. So one of the donors, he was kind of like saying like, "Hey, like you kind of look like Thor, so like let's get that started. Like I'm gonna start calling you Thor. Like I'm gonna bring signs and like Thor hammers to like the duels." I'm like, okay, whatever. Like whatever, dude. Uh, and the first duel, running out to Buffalo, and I see like a few like Thor, like "We Love Thor" signs, and like a couple like little inflatable hammers and stuff like in the crowd, and I'm like, this is like actually becoming a thing. And like I ignored it, obviously. Like, I mean, this was pretty early on in the season, but like the first couple duels, like it just started like growing a little bit more. And like the fan base, like every time I went out, like when I went out for the because we dueled Princeton right before Utah Valley, and when I went out for the
Mhm.
Princeton duel, like there was a couple people like in Thor hats, like they had the little like braids down and like the helmet, and like it had hammers, like a bunch of signs. I'm like, dude, like this is like actually a thing. And then obviously when I did the whole celebration, like that gave me inspiration for the celebration. I can't remember who I saw. I think it was Mark Hall. I think he did like a hammer celebration, like maybe the
Guitar.
week prior.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm gonna do it. Like that's just perfect. Uh, so
That's
like
crazy
adding
to
that,
think that right after a match like that.
yeah, yeah. It just kind of like came to my mind right away. I think he might have been like smashing a guitar because I think it was him and Zahid.
He did the guitar. Zahid smashed the guitar.
Okay, that's what it was. But okay, yeah. But anyways, I so that kind of gave me a little bit of inspiration. And then after the duel, yeah, like it just kind of like was the first thing that came to my head. I was like, I got to do it. And so that was a celebration I did.
Not premeditated.
Like I thought about it, but obviously when I'm looking at the lights on my back down 6-0, a minute into the duel, a
It's
minute into the
gone.
match, I'm like the thought's gone. So,
You're like, all right, I gotta win this match. I can't worry about the post-match
That's
yeah,
what I
celebrations.
mean. I was so surprised that like it was quick too. Like right after the whistle ended, you get up, you're like, whoa.
yeah. No, that
I couldn't believe
was
how he did it.
and like I knew he was like a good Greco guy, and the whole week we're talking about it. Like Bono's like, stay out of the ties, and I'm like, whatever. Like I've never been thrown. Like, what do you mean? I'm not gonna get thrown by this guy. And then like a minute into the match, like I just get launched. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Got a lot of work to do.
Refresh my memory on the comeback. What was so you're down 6-0. What was it? Just takedown, 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 or did you turn him?
No, I got like 3 takedowns, something like that. 4 take. I think it was like 3 takedowns. So I wrote them out at the end of the match to get riding time point to send it to overtime. So I think it was like 7. I think it went 7-7 into overtime. So yeah, I got out at the end of the first, and I got 2 takedowns. No, one. I only got 1 takedown second, and 2 takedowns in the third, and then wrote them out at the end of the third, get a riding time point, and then took them down quick in overtime.
And that's redshirt freshman year, right?
Yeah, yeah. First year competing, or I guess competing.
Wow,
Yeah,
I got a
that's a
question.
sick. Welcome to the field house.
yeah. Seriously, it's like my second duel there. I think.
No joke.
Yeah.
What was one thing that you think you really learned or gained from that redshirt year to your first year competing?
Uh, I think it just made me mature a lot into like I like wrestling was just so easy in high school. At least for me, wrestling was very easy. All right, froze a little bit. Am I good on your guys' end?
Yeah, you kind of glitched out a little
Yeah,
bit,
it froze
but
for
I
me
can
too, a
got
little
you.
bit too, but
Okay.
I
Okay.
think yeah, we got it.
All right. Uh, so I think I just like matured a little bit into the sport, and I just started like it was kind of going back to like the whole being like mean on the mat thing. Like when I started being mean on the mat in high school, like I was kind of like just like taking it from everybody. Like they were like just a hand fight. I think hand fight was probably the biggest adjustment for me. Like I didn't hand fight at all in high school. Like I could just like fake a couple times and shoot a double leg from space and take everyone down in high school. So I like had no idea how to hand fight, had no idea how to wrestle in neutral, and just like the physicality part of college wrestling is the biggest difference from college to high school. I think like these high schoolers nowadays are like super talented, like just elite level
Crazy.
wrestlers,
Yeah, it's
and
kind of
like use like they're adjusting to physicality because there's some of these like elite level college guys they're now coaching these high schoolers. So like physicality is like they're adjusting to that early. But I think the biggest adjustment from high school to college is the physicality of the sport versus like the technicality. Like the technique part, like everyone can shoot a really good high crotch, really good single, be good enough on top. But it's the physical part, like grinding it out for 7 whole minutes against a guy that's not going to give up positions. Like most college guys are going to wrestle through a lot of positions, going to punch you in the mouth if they feel like a little bit of attitude. Like it's just like a different level, you know. And I think that was the biggest thing adjusting for me from that redshirt year to my first year. Because I remember Barry Davis. I mean, you guys were there, tore into me at Midlands about how I just wasn't going to.
I was gonna bring it up. You brought it up.
I know you remember that. He tore into me, talking about bringing the guy ice or taking the hospital because I was slapping his knee so much or something like that.
Yeah, he was upset. You were only shooting snatch singles. He's like, "When are you gonna shoot? When are you gonna drop to your knee and shoot?"
Yeah, yeah. So I that was kind of a big turning point. 'Cause I don't think I lost a match after that. Like didn't lose a match. I think I got like 10 or 11 pins, and then obviously carried me into my redshirt freshman year. But yeah, that was a big turning point. Like I'm like, dude, like why am I not wrestling the way I need to wrestle? Like be physical and like be offensive. Like that's what got me here. And so like then I just like stopped doing it. I don't know what it was, just the adjustment period, but that was a big adjustment for the redshirt year was just being physical.
Yeah, I think even for me as a coach now, it's like some of my guys, I'm like, you're trying to make this a chess match. Like, make it a chess match in practice when you're drilling and when you're doing technique. But when it comes time for competition, or when it comes time for live, you got to make it a fist fight.
Hmm.
Like that's what it's got to be. And I think it's hard for like a lot of freshmen to come in, especially when they're hearing their whole life that college is the next level, the next level, the next level, to go in there with that mentality. I think a lot of kids come in with just like a strictly technique mentality and think that that's going to get them through. But it's like, like I know these upperclassmen are kind of being mean to you and bullying you, but you gotta give it right back. You can't
Yeah.
give that respect to them.
I
Were
mean, that's how you earn
you,
that respect in the room too.
yeah, were you, I would assume right away, because the only heavyweights were you and Stone and Dredska that first year.
Yeah.
Were you pretty much just killing everyone right away?
Oh, Ben was whooping me. Ben was whooping me early. And that's why like I said, love Ben to death. Like still like one of the nicest human beings ever met. But like his performance on the mat was like not comparing to where I thought I was at. And
At
he was
best mid.
yeah, and he was whooping me in the room. And I'm like, dude, like there was a legitimate thought in my freshman year. I'm like, I'm just gonna go play football. Like screw this. Like a legitimate thought because I was like, I knew like Paul Chris would still like want me with football. So there was a legitimate thought going through my head. I'm like, man, I was like, Ben hasn't won a match in like a month. Like, and then I'm getting texted by him in the room here, like the next day. Like, I'm like, dude, like, what am I doing? And then it did like hit a switch. It was like early to mid January that it started hitting a switch. So I started like turning the corner a little bit and started like to open up my offense a little bit more, causing me to score more points and started wrestling a lot better in the room and out of the room. So that it was a rough start. It was a very rough start.
For me, those moments were like the by far the most unforgettable. I remember when I went from getting teched by Ryan Christensen in April of 2017 before World Team or the US Open. Got teched by Ryan Christensen, like folk style teched on takedowns. And then I remember like September that year, I came into practice and I don't know what it was, but I beat him pretty bad. And I remember that day vividly. And I don't know, I can't even put my finger on it as to what clicked. I think it was a little bit of just that, like we were talking about before, just being the bully and not trying to be the bookworm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was like the most unforgettable moment for me. So do you remember the day that it clicked that you went from kind of getting beat by Ben to beating him?
I don't remember the day it clicked, but it was like early to mid January that it was like pretty close after Midlands. And I think there was just one day like I got whooped to a bed again, and I'm like, I think I had to talk to my parents like that weekend. I was like, dude, like I don't know, like I don't belong here. And then like the next for like it kind of just made that decision like by myself. I'm like, I need to like get my stuff together, you know, like I need to like figure it out if I want to be here or not. Like I need to commit. It was like kind of was like half like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like knowing I could bail the football if I needed to. That was like kind of like almost like unconsciously that was like almost my mentality that like if it's not going to work I'll just go play football. And but then like I finally like committed and I'm like, dude, like this is the sport for me, like I'm going to be a wrestler here in Wisconsin. And then it just turned the corner and it flipped and I started scoring a lot of points and started like turning the corner on Ben, the guys in the room, and then guys out of the room.
I remember talking to you that summer, and we were like at Camp Randall training a little bit. I was doing stadiums, and you're out there running your 40.
Mm-hmm.
And side tangent, I remember you told me you ran a 4.540, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, I
You
ran a
think you can still do it?
4.55.
A what?
It was a 4.55. Yeah.
You think you could still do it now?
Oh no, absolutely not. I haven't ran a 40. I'd probably pull a hammy if I ran a 40 right now.
Evan, that was going to be my hot take later.
I mean,
Hmm.
Trent can
if
still
I
run a
trained
4.5.
it, if I trained it, I think I legitimately think if I like got warmed up, I could probably run a 4.7 right now. But if I trained it, I think I could get back down to like low 4.6s. Like I just haven't done any like speed training. I'm a pure wrestler, so I'll do like quickness training, but like I don't need anything for a 40 time for wrestling.
Right.
So
But no,
um,
I was just gonna say like how I remember you were still like kind of training and trying to stay in football shape, even though we were like in the middle of wrestling season or like getting into wrestling season. And
mhm.
I remember there was I don't remember the specific time, but I remember there was a time where the football talk kind of just subsided and it was like all wrestling. At
Yeah.
what point do you think that was?
I just like I said, I just committed to wrestling. Like I there was kind of kept holding on this dream. Like I wrestled and played football my entire life, and I was like the decision to decide to like not do one of the sports was like it felt like impossible to me. Like I chose Wisconsin. Like I knew I was going to Wisconsin for about a month before I decided like wrestling or football. I'm like I can't like I was in the middle of football season when I committed to Wisconsin for wrestling, and I was like I just like this can't be my last few games ever. Like I was like I just like can't like let it go. And like that part of it was like I was like I can't like let this go. Like this is such a huge part of me. Like I love football. Like this is I've been doing it since like 9 years old. Like I just can't let go of it. And I think knowing I had an opportunity to do both in college, because even we discussed like I wouldn't redshirt in that 5th year, I would go play football. And so that was a discussion too. So there was plenty of avenues open for me to play football and wrestle in college. And there was kind of I think I kept like I said I kept holding on to that like I can't like that can't be it for football for me, like that can't be it, like there's more to that story. And but it was like taking away from my wrestling and taking away from the other parts that I fully committed. I felt like that was taken away from the coaches, from my teammates, from my parents that put all this money and effort into like getting to me where I was at. And so it's like being selfish of me by half-assing into wrestling and not fully committing, just like holding on to this dream that wasn't super realistic of playing football in college as well. And I think like there was like there said there's just one week and I was like I'm gonna like I was like I'm gonna be the greatest Wisconsin wrestler of all time. Like that's just got to be my dream. Like I gotta switch to that. And that was like my goal. And like I just completely let go of the football thing. Like I was like football's done. Like get over it. And that's when I fully committed to wrestling. Like I stopped doing 40s on the weekends to try to keep my 40 time up and like all these other like football drills. And like I stopped like watching like NFL. I'd legitimately instead of watching wrestling film, I'd watch like football film, like linebacker football film, like to keep my mind fresh and like football stuff. So like I'm like taking like in the middle of wrestling season instead of watching my upcoming opponent, I would watch Bobby Wagner highlights to see like how he's reading offenses. And it's like, what am I doing? Like I'm just not putting effort into this wrestling thing that I just chose to commit. And so I think that was like I finally just like let it go. And I'm like, this is not like that's not who I am. Like that's like let go of like that part. Like you chose wrestling, like commit to wrestling. And that was when I felt like a huge like jump too. Like I finally put like my mental part into wrestling too instead of just the physical part.
Right. Yeah, kind of the definition of 1 foot in, 1 foot out before that. But looking back now, so you made that change. If you could go back to any point after college, or go back to any point when you were in college and talk to your old self, is there anything you've changed now about your training that you wish you would have put into in college?
I think this was a little bit less out of my control, and I know you guys will understand this, but not going as hard as often. My body has broken down a lot. I've had to deal with a lot of injuries, especially the last like 3, 4 years between. I mean, shoot, I even had a broken foot at the Olympic trials this year. Like, there's just always something going on, like torn ACLs, broken ankles, broken feet, like something like that, like torn labrums. Like, there's always just something going on, and like the wear and tear of going hard all the time really affected me, like in the long run, especially now, like towards the end of my career. You started feeling like when you're a redshirt freshman or when you're 19, 20, like your body can recover in 2 hours and you'll feel great for the next practice. But when you're 22, 23, like my body is not recovering that quick. Like it takes me a full 24 hours to feel good after like a normal practice. And like now, like my lifting isn't nearly as hard. Like it's still high paced and like a lot of volume, but it's not like I'm not putting 700 pounds on my back and destroying my body. Like what? There's no need for that. Like that's just ego lifting. There's no need for that. Then back with wrestling, like I might wrestle like 3 times a week instead of 5, and just like keeping like just the volume off my body, like in that way, trying to keep my body as healthy as possible, and so I can feel good for these tournaments. And like I'm trying to prime for each tournament instead of grinding myself down to the bone early on and just trying to fight off injuries the rest of the way.
Yeah, because I feel like I can go like I did in college. I can go a 7 out of 10 for the entire year. I could do that. I could come in and really my best effort at the time was a 7 out of 10. It's all my body could really handle putting out for an entire year. It was like around a 7 out of 10. Or I can take a month off or 3 weeks off. That thing happens a lot, even on FaceTime. Is that happening for you guys?
Yeah, I saw that too. I don't know what that was.
Where's
There we
mine?
So annoying. So annoying. Um, or I could take 2 weeks off or a month off and give 2 really hard months at a 10 and get and have so many more productive hours training. And I think that for me has helped me a lot is just like having active breaks. And I don't know if it's a college wrestler or just the wrestler in me, but dude, when I take a week off, I just took a week off after Farrell. Like my brain was just like, we got to get back at it. We got to go again. And here I am. I'm doing it again. I'm going light. I'm really trying to restrain myself from going super hard because I realize now the benefit of, dude, pull off
Mhm.
because it's going to get hard and we're going to need to train hard and you need to have that kind of training at a 10 to go into a competition and feel like I deserve to win this. When you train at a 7 all year round, it's like it's not exciting going into competition because it's like I definitely wasn't going at a 10. I wasn't giving my all. I didn't feel my greatest. I don't feel my greatest going into this competition. You think now your method of break is more train 3 days of wrestling instead of 7, or do you take like big breaks after tournaments too?
I'll take big breaks. It's tougher now because I'm kind of in the room helping train the college guys too. So, like, I'll help train Bennett Tabor, who's the Minnesota heavyweight. Obviously, Gable's back, so he's been around. I've been helping train with him too. So I'm kind of like more of like a just a partner now, like just a body. So I took like 3, 4 days off after Farrell, but like my mental, like for me, it's the mental part of like the break that's huge for me. Like my body, like I'm physically like maybe putting like a 5 or 6 out of 10, my body, but my mental is like there's no stress. Like I'm like a 1 out of 10 mentally right now, and that's huge for me. Like I'm still doing like 3 out of 10 or 3 days out of 7, and like maybe I'll lift like a little bit more. Like I might do 4 out of 7 days for lifting or 5 out of 7, but two of those days will be like really light, like mainly recovery lifts. Uh, but yeah, like exactly like you're saying, like I would much rather give like a 6 week period of like 3 days of wrestling where I'm doing a 10 out of 10, or like maybe a fourth day will be like just a pure technique, 45-minute pure technique, like it's a 2 out of 10 effort day. But like 3 of those days are going to be like 10 out of 10 effort, like I'm going hard, but they didn't take like 2 weeks off uh prior, like 2 months off. Like, I don't know when our next competition is. I think it's gonna be like January, so I got a while.
Mm.
But yeah, like I'll do like usually a week or two off after a tournament when I can. Like I said, right now is a little different with the whole like helping train college guys. I'm like helping like trying to like sneak into like a coaching role a little bit. So like I'm kind of traveling with the team a little bit. Uh so doing that, and but like when I'm training, it's gonna be like 3 days a week primarily, just to keep my body fresh. I mean, these group of threes or group of fours, like I'm going with Hayden Zomer and Gable Steveson are like my group of threes. Like, I mean, my body doesn't need 4 days of that. It really does think it needs like one or two. Like, and then like the rest of the days can just be like hard drills and like getting like mentally crisp. But like, so I have a perfect training situation for being elite, like getting better and just improving. So I don't need to destroy my body. Just like let me be mentally fresh, let me be physically fresh by the time I compete.
Yeah, did you find it hard to get excited to compete sometimes in college, just with the college grind constantly going?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, especially like middle Big Ten season. It's like you're on your fifth like top 10 guy in the country, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like give me like get me to the Big Ten tournament. Like these matches don't mean anything. Like really. Like
Yeah.
they're like for seeding, but like you're gonna wrestle in the Big Ten tournament anyways. So it's
I
like kind of
always
like
felt I
go
always
ahead.
felt so defeated going into NCAAs already. Did you feel excited for NCAAs going into it?
The first couple, yeah, but like after I All American, it was like hard to get up for it, which is like hard to believe,
Hmm.
like the biggest tournament of the year. But it's like you're expected, no matter where I came in seated. Like I mean, All American at the 17 seed or something. Like I can't really my COVID year, so like I had a really bad regular season, but I still came in All American, made the quarterfinals, like all that. And so like no matter where I was seated, like it was like the expectation I was gonna be an All American. Like that just didn't feel like it was hard for me to get up for those because it was just such a grind. Because like I've already had to like beat or like wrestle these guys in like 1 point matches, overtime matches, like the entire season. I'm like, dude, like my body isn't ready for this. I'm not mentally ready for this. Like it was tough. It was definitely tough to get up for.
I remember for me that COVID year, like when we only wrestled the Big Ten duels, like there was only
Yeah.
maybe 7 matches. That was awesome for me. I don't know how you felt about it. And based on that, do you think that wrestling or NCAA wrestling should go down to 1 semester
100%.
seasons?
They're like, I understand like all these old heads are talking about like how like well we used to wrestle 50 matches back in the day, like whatever. You also all used to wrestle with concussions and stuff too. Like there's a reason none of you guys can walk at the age of 40. Like we're trying to like be
Yeah.
alive by 70 and 80 and like be able to like hold our kids and stuff. So like I fully believe it should be a 1 semester, like maybe make it January to like or mid-April or something. Like make it
It's
like change to that. Like it doesn't need to be like you don't need to wrestle 35 matches in a year. Like that doesn't do anything. Like especially like Big Ten. Like Big Ten is so elite. Like you're wrestling a top 20 guy in the country every weekend, sometimes twice a weekend. Like there is no need for
yeah.
me to wrestle 15 matches in the first semester. Like these guys would like go to Cliff Keen and Midlands. Like that's crazy to me. Like go to one of them, sure. Like that's like a prep tournament. But like going to both of them, like I like that for me, like that would kill me. Like I couldn't imagine like right now trying to wrestle in Cliff Keen and like Midlands or and Scuffle or whatever it is. I feel like it'd have scraped me off the mat. Like that'd be so much like high level wrestling back to back that like yeah, it'd be tough.
Yeah. I I uh I think if you're really excited and you're on a roll, it's good to go to those tournaments. But I trained in Michigan, at University of Michigan, and I talked to Bormet, and I was like, kind of asking him what the difference is between wrestling now and wrestling back when he did. What high school athletes are like now versus when he was in high school. And I was expecting the old head answer that you're talking about. These kids aren't tough anymore. They want to take so many breaks. But he was straight up. He was like, dude, these kids got so many more miles on them coming into college already. It's like our job is way different now as a college coach. It's just to taper and prepare them and make sure they're getting the right competition in the room, as opposed to when he was in college. It was like you got to get these kids and you got to shape them up to be college wrestlers, because the divide between a high school wrestler and a college wrestler back then was vastly greater than it is
Mm-hmm.
now. And I think that's something that as we go on and on, high school kids, even from when I was in high school to now, right? The kids now are doing so much more than I was ever doing. I was not doing,
100%.
dude, oh, like the US Open, these kids are doing camps all year round, and
It's
gosh, the training
crazy.
that they're doing is so they're training with RTC guys. I mean, they're training with such higher level athletes than I was ever training at. The level of competition is just so much higher now for high school kids than when I was in high school. And I can imagine back in the day, these old heads can talk all they want, dude, but it was like you guys were not nearly as good. You weren't nearly as good. I'm sorry.
No, and there just wasn't opportunities to wrestle like in the summer. Like they just ran around and just played with their friends in the summer. While
Yeah.
99% of the wrestling world, if they're taking it serious, you're wrestling 100 matches in the summer, and that's not even the regular season where you're doing everything else in high school. So like it's like you're doing Fargo, you're doing junior duels, you're doing some are doing junior and cadet duels, you're doing Super 32, you're doing all these things. Like you're doing all these massive tournaments where you're wrestling top 20 guys in the country as a high schooler. I mean, you're getting 500 matches in as a high schooler coming into college. Like that's a ton. Like, and it just keeps going up and up as the more competition comes. And yeah, like I mean, I'm a huge Bormet fan personally. I got to know him really well. Obviously, he recruited me at Michigan when McFarland was still the head coach there. But I'm a huge Bormet fan. Like that, yeah, he's awesome.
I like Borman a lot. He's doing a really good job at Michigan.
Yeah,
Um, he seems like he's got a really good hold on the NIL stuff, but they're also developing some really good kids too. So
oh yeah,
that's interesting. But no, I remember we did a camp at my high school because my high school was like where Titan Mercury was based out of. We had like David Taylor, we had Cal Dake, we had Jordan Burroughs, and one year we had Dan Gable down, and Dan Gable was like we brought him down and we were telling him about our training because my mom had to be the one to drive him to and from his hotel to the airport and back. And I remember I drove with him, drop him off at LAX on his way back. And my mom was telling him about our training, and he was like shocked. He's like, high school kids are they're training in the summer all year round? Like that many kids are doing that? Like just shocked. Maybe he was just gassing us up because he seemed like he was the type of guy to be training all year round at all points in his life. But he seemed to be like totally shocked that kids were training that hard now.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just really about being healthy and feeling good. I mean, you see it like these high schoolers, like they can recover faster, like they don't nearly as many miles on their body, but they're technical freaks. Like these lighter guys, these like Bo Bassett's, Jack Forrest, like those guys of the world. Like, and PJ Duke just won Bill Farrell. Like these guys are like elite level wrestlers, and it's like they aren't having the miles put on their body like these 27, 28 year olds have. And I mean, that's why I think you're just going to keep seeing like high schoolers and high schoolers just beating these guys, like just getting this high level training, but not having the wear and tear on their body.
Well, I think that's something that I can speak to is like coaching at AWA. It's like, we have kids wrestling all year round, and like wrestling these high level tournaments. We're sending kids out to the U.S. Open, to the World Championships, and it's like I feel like anyone who still believes that you can get to that level just on your own at your local high school is just like you're behind the times, honestly.
Yeah, you're saying kids who think that they can just go like in the season?
Yeah, and then so it's not. It's more of the expectation. It's like you can't expect to compete with these guys. Like they've been training for basically 3 seasons to year one every year.
Yeah.
Like they're tripling the amount of experience you have because they're just wrestling more often.
Yeah, I mean it's like a job at this point for these little kids to be going to wrestling practice. I can imagine in any sport now, it's like God, these it's like a job for 5-year-old kids to be constantly going into practice every day. But I think at least as a parent, I'm gonna expect my kids to do that. But I think the reward anymore isn't necessarily in, back in the day it was in the summer, go hang out with your buddies and practice, yada yada yada, have some fun. Now it's a little bit workman-like, but it's a lot more rewarding once you come out of it. These kids are like they feel some success and they get to have that in the sport. So I think that's kind of what drives kids to do these sports now. But yeah, anybody who thinks that they can have that kind of like, oh, this is just for fun. I'm just gonna go to wrestling practice for fun and chat with my buddies, and I'm gonna do it for 3 months a year, and hopefully I can become a state champ. It's like, dude, sorry, that's not the world we live in anymore. Like for some kids, this is a job, and they're gonna cook you when if you come in with that mentality, you know. So
The sports
Yeah,
are just so competitive now, like especially with the how college sports is turning into. Like it used to be like you're fighting for X amount of scholarships or X amount of whatever. Now you're fighting for a lot less of those. And when these middle schoolers get up to these high school age, I'm sure it's gonna be a lot less than what it is now. So it's just getting this like super narrowed down number of like positions you're fighting for in these college teams. Like so, I mean, like you have to start at 4 or 5 years old doing it 6 months out of the year, which is crazy. But like if that's your goal to be a college wrestler, like you got to have that dream early on, or you're gonna have to catch up later on because these everyone not a lot of people in the country are starting at 5 years old. Like you guys are saying, like in a club for 6 months out of the year, 8 months out of the year, 12 months out of the year, whatever it is.
I feel like
It's gonna.
AWA contradicts that. Like more like because we try to get kids to just like enjoy the sport first, and like, dude, you shouldn't be competing until you're like 9 or 10 years old. Maybe like once or twice when you're 8, but like the whole goal should not be to be training and getting matches like that. You got to at least love the sport because I know we all know people who have burnt out from wrestling that much when they were that young.
So you think AWA? At what point does AWA kind of change the tone with these kids and say, "Hey, all right, time to ante up. It's a
About
job
eighth or ninth
now."
grade.
Eighth or ninth grade. Okay, that's fair. I mean, that's a good time.
I fully
I
believe in like, letting them enjoy the sport, like have fun. Like that's my full like my mentality. Like my parents were like, do as many sports as you want because it's going to get serious eventually. Like enjoy your time. So
Yeah,
like
at a certain
I'm full
at a
that
certain
full for that.
time, if you want to be really good at a sport, you kind of have to narrow it down, right? You have to give it more attention if you actually want to be good at it, you know. And I think we encourage kids to kind of like find that sport that they want to be passionate about. Um, and but at some point, like if it's you need to kind of make that decision around eighth or ninth grade because pretty soon that's going to become like your life or it's not, you know.
Mhm.
I think I kind of agree. I disagree with you, Trent.
Okay.
I think uh, it's like at some point, it's like welcome to the real world, buddy. But you got to start putting some time into this thing in order to get better at it. I think I think me and you though would probably agree on the fact that I want my kids to have fun, but hopefully that fun will then at some point turn to them making the decision to make this a little bit more of a job than it is playtime.
No, I do agree with that. I guess my experience comes from I never wrestled full year round. I never did football full year round. Like so I gave 6 months, 6 months, like right down dead down the middle. And so like for
Okay.
me, it was like I never got like that's how I felt that I never got tired of wrestling. And or I never got tired of football because like as soon as I'd start feeling like man, wrestling is like getting old, like I'd be starting football right away. So we starting something brand new. So for me, I think I mean it goes person to person, obviously, but for me,
Yeah.
my thing was like the less I didn't have to entirely focus on a single sport. I mean, I was blessed enough to like be good enough at that sport to where I could possibly have opportunities past high school, also, but it helped me not get exhausted of wrestling earlier than I feel like I would have. Because there's like a few. This could be college grind too, but there's like year 3 or 4. I'm like, man, wrestling is like sucks.
Getting old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they could just be college grind too, and everyone just feels that regardless if I did football or wrestling 12 years or 12 months of the year in high school too. But like I think like that for me helped a lot, like just completely cutting it down the middle. And like I said, like I I, I do agree that like you do have to get serious about one, like for sure. And like I mean you could see even like early in my red shirt, like we discussed earlier, like I wasn't like a serious wrestler my early red shirt year. Like I was good in high school, but like I was getting my butt whooped a lot, like coming into college. And like I finally had to like dedicate my entire heart to this one sport. And that's when you see me like skyrocket my success and like my ability jumps. And so like I do agree, like I finally got serious about wrestling and then I improved a bunch. So like if I did that my senior year of high school, like maybe it'd be different. Like I could have competed right away or in that red shirt. So obviously like you never know, but that does definitely play a factor.
Yeah, you
I
just kind of
think
later.
I think your story to me just kind of resonates with the built-in breaks, kind of like you had some built-in breaks that kept you excited about wrestling, and that's what kept you going.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. But Getting kind of late in this podcast. I don't want to keep you too long, Trent. I got one more question.
I got like two.
Pat, two more. All right, Pat, you go, then I'll go, then you go.
Got it. Um, Tell me about your recruiting trip. Like, what was it about Wisconsin that wanted to keep you around? What are you laughing for?
What do you mean? It's the two on the screen that wanted to keep me in Wisconsin. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Xander's not here though.
Yeah,
Xander
Pat was there
apparently
though. Pat was basically my other host.
we
I
went
just wanted to
bowling at
know, like,
Union South.
Bowling Union South.
bowling, bro.
I
No,
remember.
I mean Madison just was beautiful. Like the campus, we'll start with that. The campus itself was just hard to say no to. Like the two lakes, like it just everything about it, like it just had the perfect feel. Like it wasn't like too city. Like I grew up like on the outskirts of the city. Like I grew up in like a farm town, but outskirts of the city. So I got a little bit of both like growing up, and that's kind of like had a perfect mixture in Madison. Was like you could go like 10 minutes one way and you're in the middle of nowhere, like you're staring at cows, and but you're like you kind of feel like you're in a city when you're in the middle of Madison. You could be on a lake within 5 minutes if you're sitting in the middle of Madison. So super hard to beat. The atmosphere of the college town, like it felt like such a natural like college town that like we go to a football game and like the entire city is just like you can just feel it vibrating like with how like the excitement was like Camp Randall's beautiful stadium, like the atmosphere in those for those football games are unmatched. Like all that part, and then I mean the most important thing was like the quality of the teammates and the coaches, and that for me that was the biggest part. Like I knew I was going to be able to figure out partner situation or figure out whatever situation I needed to. I could deal with living in a crappy place, but I didn't want to deal with living like with crappy people and being on a team with crappy people. And so like I that was the biggest part for me was like had great teammates. Obviously met you two there. Uh, and I just felt like a connection with the team. Like I felt like I was a part of the team the second I stepped foot on campus, and that was obviously with you two, Xander, a couple other guys, and like they like people would message me after I left campus, like, "Hey, like how's it going? Like, or congrats on this, whatever." And like I just felt like such a family connection, like through the team on the visit, and that's what sold me right away. Like I took my visit to Cornell the weekend before, did not feel that. Cornell also a beautiful campus, obviously, great team, great wrestling team, like great academics, but like was not a family feel at all. And that was the biggest thing for me. Like the second I came home from Wisconsin, I was pretty dead set. Like this is where I was going to go. And like that's why I knew I was going to go to Wisconsin. And like the wrestling, I felt a way better connection with the wrestling team than the football team. And that was like the biggest decision,
Yeah.
and the whole wrestling mentality, like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. Like, but like the family atmosphere and like Brandvold, Barry Davis, Rochelle, Eppert, like all those guys were amazing. Like super good people, like super down to earth. Like I felt like I was a part of the team already.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anywhere, any city in the country with a better community than Madison. Madison just really feels like kind of homey place, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just a sense of community. Um, but all right, my question, Trent, you had a great Farrell tournament. How'd you
Yeah,
feel? How'd you feel going into that tournament? Is it like a great training cycle or how's
I
how's
mean,
it how's it going?
great training cycle. Was finally getting healthy again. Like I said, I broke my foot at the trials, so I took a lot of time off healing that. Uh, so finally feeling healthy again. I get where I was talking about my partners earlier. I mean, I get to train with Hayden Zomer, Gable, Tabor. Like I mean, with the best guys in the world, training with them every single day. So it's hard not to improve when you're wrestling those guys every day. You're either going to get whooped all the time or figure out how to improve. And so that was great. Troy was giving me a lot of good tidbits on like Troy Steiner, my coach, gave me a lot of good Troy tidbits on uh, different avenues I can improve and getting my offense going again. Because that was the biggest thing I felt from like late college or like earlier college to late college. My offense was like depleting a lot. Like it just like I just the confidence wasn't there, and it just felt like something wasn't clicking, you know. And and I felt like he was able to get that back into me, like that, like something flipped a switch, clicked to where I was getting my offense going again, get my hand fight better, getting better, and yeah, so great training cycle and all that. Like put a tournament together. I mean, it's all about showing up on that one day, no matter how good the training cycle was. And I was feeling good and keeping my feet moving, got my offense going, and wrestled pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought your match with Wood was lights out. That was an awesome match to watch. I mean, if anyone hasn't watched that match, go watch that. It was a sick match to watch. You look great. I watched you in the was it semis with Merrill?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Talk about high school kids who are doing
I
well,
would say
man. It's
there's
like
another
kids.
really good high school kid.
yeah, dude.
I know.
What? Yeah, like where do they feed these kids? That dude is huge. He was a brick
He's
house. His
gigantic.
biceps to the side of my head. Like I was like, what the heck? I was like, I saw him warming up. I'm like, who is this kid? I knew I saw I knew the Merrill name. I knew he was a high schooler. And, like I had no idea who it was. I'm like, as soon as he like took his thing, oh, like this guy's gigantic. What the hell?
He is the
Yeah,
literal
yeah.
definition of built like a house.
Yeah, seriously. I like trying to wrestle him. I'm like, dude, I can't get like underneath this guy. Like, so my offense, like that's the toughest part about wrestling at heavyweight. Like, I want to shoot underneath guys, but like some of these dudes, like Don Bradley's another guy. Like, I cannot get underneath Don Bradley, and if I do, he's gonna kill me. And this was like another thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't get underneath Merrill. Like, he's doing such a good job, like keeping good position and like, I mean, forcing me to wrestle like around him and like over top of him. So like, yeah, it was tough. Yeah, those guys are tough to wrestle.
Did you feel like going into the tournament like, all right, I'm gonna win this thing?
I mean, that's my mentality for every tournament, no matter who's in it. I'm not going to show up unless the day I retire is the day I know or I have the mentality like I'm not going to be able to win this thing or like there's like any sort of restriction. So like I'm going to keep wrestling until I know I can be the best guy in the world. And so I go in this tournament with the same mentality. And like so I was able to put matches together, move my feet well, get my offense going early. Like I said, the one match, I mean, had to get the offense going because about 1 billion points were scored in that match. So had
Yeah.
no choice but to get offense going. Got to work on the defense a little bit more for that one, but yeah, no, it was good. Wrestled well, and yeah, hopefully going to keep it going, keep
Yeah,
the momentum
sweet.
going.
All right, one last question. You were damn near in the WWE, and then you all of a sudden come back to Minnesota wrestling, just kind of like Gable Steveson. You guys had very similar stories. What was that kind of transition like, trying to work between both?
Well, I wish it was a little bit more similar. Like being Olympic champ would be sick and all, but but no. So it was like during the COVID year, just after COVID year, like WWE reached out to me, DM'd me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And they're like, hey, would love to have you come out for a tryout. And I'm like, never really thought of it. Never watched WWE, like nothing, like knew nothing about it other than I knew it was fake wrestling. That was it. And that was like my only mentality going into it. And I was like, this would be like pretty sweet though. Like that's a pretty sweet like thing to do. Like regardless, if they're gonna pay for everything, like what's going to be the big deal about like doing like a 2-3 day trial? Like the worst thing that happens, they just like say you suck. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And
You already had
uh,
the Thor brand.
yeah, so it like, worked out perfect. And there's like people here and there like mentioning it to me, like ex WWE like scouts, like, hey, like you should think about this, whatever. And I go down as a middle of season, so like middle of December, and like luckily enough, it fell into like a 14-day period. Like we didn't have any competition, so I talked to Bono, Reader, like they let me go down to Florida for 4 days, 5 days, and train down there. Uh, but yeah, went down to Orlando to like their training facility. First day, get there, like they give us like the itinerary, and we have to go through a bunch of physicals and like lifting tests and speed tests and jump tests and all this other stuff. Like just test how athletic you are. Second day, it's like all stuff like in the ring. Like they're telling you how to be comfortable in a ring, telling you how to fall and like not get hurt, and like how to like throw people and like all those other things. Like being comfortable in a ring, like just test your ability in a ring. And then the last day, so there's about like I'd say there's probably about 50 people here. There's 25 girls, 25 guys, and like they're like professional athletes, like all on their side, like U.S. gymnasts, like professional, like NBA, like NFL. Like there was like a former Seahawks safety that was there. Like he was like on the practice squad and came down, so he was like currently in the Seahawks safety room. And so it's like those like caliber people. I'm like Jesus, like what am I doing here? And like all these guys are making millions of dollars, and I'm here just in college wrestling.
You're like, I
And
got one day.
yeah, and the third day they were like sort of mentioning it. This was terrifying. Still to this day, like I could start sweating bullets thinking about it. they're kind of mentioning it, but like obviously you have to be very good in front of a camera to be in WWE, like very good like personality. Like I got good personality, but it's like that's different. That's a different like level. Like I can like show out like in a wrestling match. Like I can like do Thor's hammer at the end of a wrestling match, but like talking crap about someone like off the top of my head in front of a camera in front of a bunch of people, yeah, different. And so they're kind of mentioning it, but they're like, you got to do a minute promo about your upcoming like world championship match against whoever. I think it was about Roman Reigns for the guys. I don't know who the girls was about. And so like they're like sort of mentioning it, and like you probably should practice like in front of a mirror. And I'm like, whatever. Like I can freestyle it.
Oh, way
And and we get there the third day, and at the end of the third day was like more of like the ring like testing, like with the stuff that showed you earlier the previous day, and like kind of like simulation matches. And but we get there in the morning first third day, and there's like 25 giant TV cameras. There's like a stand that you're on, like a bunch of like spotlights, and there's a bunch of chairs around at the bottom, and then like all the WWE superstars lined up on the side, like as you're walking. So like John Cena, The Rock, like all these guys. And I'm like, I walk in, I'm like, what did I just walk into? And like, so you're with like all these super popular, like super famous guys, and one by one, you go up on the stage and doing your 1 minute promo in front of the camera, in front of everybody, like dead silent, like, and Roman Reigns is like there, and like you're just like talking crap about him about this world championship thing. I'm like, dude, like there's just so out of my comfort zone.
You're talking crap to the real Roman Reigns?
Like he was like just like there, like off to the side, like at like a table, but it was like all of them. And, but like you're like like staring at these TV, and you can't take your eyes off this TV camera because like that was like their big thing. Like you gotta like stare direct in the camera because that's how they know you mean it. So like you're staring direct in the camera, like it was just so uncomfortable. Like one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done in my entire life. Like I'm starting to sweat like just thinking about it right now. And so like that was brutal. I bombed it. So I got about like 40 seconds in, and I forgot the entire part of what I was going to say at the end. And so we just stared at the camera for the last 20 seconds. It was horrible. It was miserable. And yeah.
Is that on YouTube or anything? Can we see
No,
that?
it's not on YouTube.
Oh.
Not on YouTube. Not on YouTube. I would have made sure that got burned immediately.
Gotta
But like then the testing at the end, like the matches all went great. Like I was like super comfortable in the ring and all that stuff. But like just the acting part obviously was a huge struggle, and that was a big thing with wrestlers. I was talking like the acting coach at the end of it. He's like, all wrestlers that come to this are like struggle with the acting part. He's like, you're not supposed to show emotion in wrestling at all. Like that's like a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you bend over and like put your hands on your knees, like you're hit. Like that's like one of those things, like you can't like do any of that. Like, and so like it's a huge jump from like showing zero emotion. It's like an emphasis to show zero emotion to like going over the top on emotion. And so like went through all that, and like they said like they met with us at the end, and they said everything went great besides like the acting part. Like that was like horrible. He's like, but all wrestlers are horrible at acting, so like it's kind of like the one thing. And then he said, we'll call you and see, like we'll offer you a contract or whatever. And like 2 weeks later they offered me a contract. They're like, well, you'll come down for a month, and like you'll like just work with the acting coach like for a month straight. Like you'll come down to Orlando, and you're just gonna work like purely the acting coach, like a little bit stuff in the ring, but like that's your like big thing. Like you need to work on your acting, and like so you'll have like a Broadway acting coach like come in and like just work with you for a month.
Damn, so
And
they try to develop you guys then.
yeah. So like, but like I told the guy, the scout before this, I was like, hey, I got 2 more years left of college, or like a year and a half. Like I'm finishing my college degrees. Like I'm finishing college. Like I want to get my master's. Like, I'm almost done with my master's. Like I'm finishing college. He said, okay, that's fine. Like you can come after. Like we'll just want you to try out to like get your name in the ring and whatever. And then during this call, they're like, you need to be down in a week. And this was like January 1st, January 2nd. They're like, you need to be here in a week. Like we have your flight scheduled. Like, do you say yes or no? Like you have till tomorrow to say yes or no. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. This was a promise. Like, I'm not leaving my team in the middle of the year. I'm not doing that. Like I want to get my master's degree. I want to finish my college career. Like I want to finish wrestling. I can't say bye to wrestling like just like that. So then I told him no, obviously, and that was it. That was the end of the story. Really haven't had
I
an
wonder.
opportunity to go back to it. Probably wouldn't do it. No,
You don't want to be acting no more in front of the cameras?
Yeah, no, I'm good doing like the short 30-second interviews after a wrestling match or whatever, and that's it for me.
I I wonder why they would even recruit wrestlers or football players. And like the most important thing is the acting in WWE. Like just
Yeah.
recruit an actor who's a pretty big dude and get him buff, shoot him up with some steroids, and do that.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
just the biggest thing was like wrestlers are so comfortable with their bodies, like their hips. Like they can do some
Fair.
like there I mean some of these guys were like freak athletes, like NBA, like basket like football, like NFL players, and like they couldn't do a forward roll. Like I'm not exaggerating. Like they could not do a forward
Like
roll.
that unathletic.
Yeah, like but they could run a 4.40 and jump 36 inches in the air. Like but like they couldn't do a forward. Like they just have no like spatial awareness of their bodies. And so like I was like watching some of these guys, like there's like it's like you are currently on a practice squad in the NFL and you can't do a forward and backward roll. Like they just like they don't like they would roll forward, like they couldn't like get their hips underneath of them and like they'll just like land flat on their back. I'm like, what am I watching? So like that's like it's such a like advantage. Like wrestlers know their body so well. I think that's their thing. They're like, we're gonna try making all these like really athletic wrestlers like be actors versus trying to figure out these like decent actors to become really comfortable with their body. So I that's my
Yeah.
reality. Like they might get like Tracy Hancock. Like he's doing well in the WWE. Like he's a freak athlete and he's like an entertainer. So you got guys like that can do both, and like that's who they're looking for. You got like the Casper brothers, like they're doing that too. Like good entertainers, very athletic, like know their body. So they're just trying to probably find those type of guys to keep like funneling in to WWE.
I should go back and watch WWE. I haven't watched in a long time. I don't even know who's there now.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I watched it for like a month after, being like, man, should I have done this? And I'm like, it's okay. I'm good. I'm good where
You're like,
I'm
I
at.
don't need to be one of those guys up there.
I'm good where I'm at. Like that'd be great money, whatever, but I'm all right.
uh, well, gosh, Trent, we covered a lot of bases here. Covered
Yeah, it's good talking to you guys.
WWE.
Always glad talking to you guys.
Been so long, Trent. I
Great.
missed you.
I know I miss you
Yeah,
guys too.
I like bringing on college wrestlers and just talking about the entire experience. I think it helps out a lot of the viewers who are probably, high school wrestlers, middle school wrestlers, or dads of those wrestlers. I think it helps a lot. And I just think for me, especially, I enjoy talking mostly about mindset and stuff with you. That's kind of as a coach now where I got to figure that out because I feel like I got the technique down, but trying to figure out the mindset stuff. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in to episode 4 of Washed Up. I'm Evan Wick,
Are we reintroducing ourselves? I'm Patrick Spray.
and
Um,
this
That's
is
Thor.
Washed Up.
It's washed up,
Washed Up.
guys.
Let's get another one of these. Everyone get one of these. I'm not getting it.
I'm not getting it either. Maybe it's just yours. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Oh,
What?
I get
We
it.
need two thumbs. Two